Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Today we're trying a really interesting new, well, it's not new for everyone, but for me it's new, wipe-on style finish, Odie's oil. Now we've done quite a few wipe-on style finishes on this channel before, and they're fairly popular because a lot of you guys don't have the means or the space to spray. So if you don't have a spray gun, you don't want to be using spray cans in like your finishing closet or whatever in your apartment, a wipe-on finish is an attractive option. Now, still, a lot of those wipe-on finishes, for example, wipe-on polys and stuff like that, are solvent-based. They've got chemicals in them. They're not particularly safe, and they're a little tough to do indoors. So that leaves us wanting to consider other options, and there are, of course, a few of them. There are brush-on and wipe-on water-based finishes that don't really have those issues. There are oils, which I know a lot of you like, and then there's this stuff. Hard wax oil. Rather than being a wipe-on, wipe-off finish like an oil, this stuff is a buff-on, buff-off finish. It's a little more durable from what I understand than most oils. Not like true oil, which is practically a film finish, but than most oils. And you really don't need much of it. So it's going to be very interesting. We're going to test out a few of these today. This is not a film finish like a poly. To expand on that point a little bit, a poly or lacquer, that kind of stuff, forms a film over top of the surface of the wood. An oil kind of soaks into it, which is why oils don't really offer much protection. This stuff offers a little more protection than an oil from what I understand, and you can put a wax on top of it or Odie's butter. We're going to play with some of that stuff, but it doesn't create a film finish. Another really interesting point about this is you can put it over pretty much anything. So that's something that is unique to this, as far as I understand, and makes it, well, a very attractive option for a lot of things. Because it's a hard wax oil, I mean, it's designed to cross-link with your wood. And we're going to test it on these veneered panels, and it you know, goes in there and hardens nicely. That's what it's for, kind of in the main, if you will. But you can put it over pretty much anything from what I understand from speaking to someone who works there. And I mean, it kind of adopts the properties of its surface a little bit. So for example, if you're someone who wears leather shoes, you can use Odie's oil or Odie's wax on your shoes. I use beeswax on my shoes already, so I might give this a try. And it's going to maintain the supple properties of the leather. Whereas if you put it over something like a piece of metal that's been finished, well, it's kind of just going to buff it a little bit. Probably actually going to remove some of the gloss look because this stuff isn't designed to be a full hard gloss. So in today's video, I'm going to try out a couple of these just by themselves, a couple of the simple options here, and we're going to show you how very little of this you actually need to be able to do a finish, how it goes on, how easy it is. It's a buff on, buff off. It'll be good. And then in an upcoming video, we're going to test out some of the more interesting stuff. In other words, we'll play with some pigments and some super penetrating oil and layering these things and that sort of thing. So there's going to be more than one video with these Odie's oil products, but for today, let's show you the original. Let's see how this stuff performs. All right, we're going with the classic first here. This freshness seal is under the actual label, so oh well. I'm just gonna slice that. Do this the easy way. There we go. So that looks pretty hard. That's the oil, okay? That's not wax. That's actually what the oil looks like in the can. And as you start to, like, it's not super hard. As you start to move it around a bit, it becomes pretty evident that it is, in fact, a hard wax oil and not like a hard carnauba wax or something like that. You just gotta work it a little. Now, again, it's gonna take a hilariously small amount of this stuff to do this piece. This is about 10 inches by 12 inches or something like that. That's probably too much, but that's what we're going to use. Just a little bit there. We're going to see how far that gets us. I've never used this stuff before. I know a lot about it from discussions and watching videos, but I've never used it. So let's see how it does. All right, so let's take a look here. Starting to get an interesting little sheen. It's not an aggressive sheen. And it won't be unless we build up like 10 coats of this. I know you guys like these finishes that you can build up really slowly, a little bit at a time. You know, all of you who come on and say, I did 20 coats and I've gotten this issue or that issue. Well, this is one of those finishes where you can do that. You can build up a ton of this if you want. You don't have to. 2 or 3 is probably good for a lot of stuff, but you can. I'm going to leave that for about 45 minutes. I just want to see how far this gets, because I'm still getting some impact here, and that was like the amount of toothpaste you use. Yeah, let's add just a touch more, probably about the same again. Just a little bit in the same spot there. When I spoke to the guy who works there, who is very familiar with this, we got pretty sciencey on it. He told me one of the main mistakes people make is using too much. So don't use too much was basically his advice. I'm trying to avoid that. Working it around in circles here to make sure I'm pushing it in, because it gets into the grain and it cross-links, and that's how it hardens, particularly on wood. And like I said, it's a buff on, buff off. So that's a coat done as far as I'm concerned. If you can call it a coat when it's not a film finish. And I am now going to give that about 45 minutes, and then I'm going to take the clean side of this, buff it off, and do it again. While that is notionally drying, hardening up a bit, let's put this off to the side and try something else. Today we are also going to try Odie's Dark. It should look very, very similar, but I think if we put these out in the sunlight for a while, which we won't today because we don't have time, but if we put these out in the sunlight for a while, the dark will darken up. So it darkens wood with age, basically, and I think UV is going to speed up that process. This is really interesting that they have this now, because it allows you to get kind of that aged look as you go over the course of time. I know a lot of you guys like finishes that age. Let's take a look at what we're dealing with here. It's darker. I don't think it's going to look much darker when it goes on here. I'm going to grab a fresh pad as well. Keep my pads and my popsicle sticks together here so that, because I think I can just continue to use them. A little bit of oil in a pad isn't going to make it worthless. So the cost of material involved in finishing with this stuff, aside from the oil itself, I don't know the cost of the oil itself, but the cost of the other stuff is just minuscule. It's absolutely minimal. It's going to be a very efficient finish in that respect. All right, so just a very small amount of this. So at first glance, that looks, it is a little darker actually. It looks just a touch darker, but it's very similar. And with exposure to UV, this should darken up over time. I don't have a UV light here at home, unfortunately. That would have been helpful, but that's what they tell me. So that's about the best information I have to go on at the moment, is what they've told me. Look how far this goes. Like this is hardly any material at all. And I should be able to basically finish this entire piece. And as a tangential kind of side bonus, if you will, stuff actually smells pretty good. Yep, that's the whole piece done. Let's try something a little different here. Let's give the dark butter a try. This should be a little thicker. You can put the butter over top of the oil. You can put the wax over top of the oil. You can use the penetrating oil, followed by the oil, followed by the butter, followed by the wax, if you were trying to use all of them for some reason. Let's give this a try on its own, At some point, we'll do some actual finishes on guitars and stuff like that with these products, and we'll do a little mix and match type of situation. But for now, one more test for the moment. Let's try the butter. I'm not going to do just the wax on its own because I think the wax should go over the oil. So we'll work with the wax in a later video. But for now, let's open this guy up. Ooh, very interesting. Okay. So that's clearly a lot thicker. It's got a lot waxier look to it. All right, let's grab another popsicle stick. This gets put on the same way, so let's give her a try. So this stuff takes a touch more effort to get moving, but not much. Similar situation. Wonder if I can just put some of this harder stuff on there. Well, you gotta probably mush it together a little bit here, but not too much. Odie's dark butter. Hey, well, this butter needs a moment in the microwave. All right, I don't want to use too much again. That's the key thing that I'm trying to avoid. That seems pretty conservative. It should work. So let's see how this looks. Now again, this dark one should look the same as the normal butter. I think I specifically and exclusively requested the dark butter because this is something that I'm going to use over top of, whoa, that was close, over top of oils, mostly, or over top of other finishes even, because it can go over top of other finishes, to create an aging finish, a finish that will darken with time in UV. So that'll be one of the main things that I use this product for, I think. Feels nice. Smells nice again. It's so weird to have a finish that smells good. I hope my camera hasn't been shaking this whole time. I put it on my, oops, and then I go and bump it. I put it on my table here so that it'd give you guys a nice close look. But my table that I'm using right now isn't super sturdy. I gotta upgrade it. So it might be rattling around. I apologize if that's the case. You'll have to forgive me. You don't really have a choice. Okay, I think I got the amount about right on there. So this stuff, unlike the oil, which is going to sit for about 45, I'm going to leave this for about an hour and a half. And then we'll come back. So we'll come back and buff those three off. You guys won't notice a time difference, but I'll film them at the appropriate times. And then we'll see how they all look. And we'll probably add another coat. Why not, right? So we're coming in here about 45 minutes later. Like I said, I think they recommend about an hour actually, but it was a relatively warm, dry day, so 45 minutes, mostly because I forgot that it was supposed to be an hour. And I buffed that off of there, all of the excess, anything that's left over, with this white kind of non-abrasive pad, and then I'm going to reapply using the same thing, just the other side. You can and possibly should buff it off of there using an ordinary kind of rag, not a cotton cloth or anything ridiculously soft like that, but just a standard rag. That is definitely an option. I wouldn't use microfiber personally. It just absorbs a little too much. And this is, of course, the appropriate thing for applying it because it doesn't absorb much oil at all, and it gives you that little hint of abrasion, not much with these white ones, but a little hint of it to really, get the oil on there properly and make sure everything's nice and smooth. You can use this to buff it off, but you don't have to. Like I said, you can use a cloth instead. I'm going to do the same thing with the other types of oil, and you can see there's a slightly different hue between these. So this one in the camera almost appears a little bit darker, but the Odie's dark has a darker look to it. Now, between the time of me filming the actual video here and the time of me making this voiceover, I did put this stuff outside for a little bit, a few hours, the dark, to see if it would darken up. And I can tell you that after just a few hours, it didn't really do much. I thought it may be slightly darker, but, frankly, that might just be my eyes playing tricks on me, because when I brought it back in and compared the two, they look pretty similar. So I think that this probably takes a little bit more time to age than than just a day outside or something like that. Largely, it looks the same. The application method is the same. So the Odie's dark or the Odie's normal. I think really the only difference is, do you want it to kind of darken up over time as it ages? I was told that it's good for preserving some of those darker woods that tend to lighten up over time. So for example, a walnut, if you leave it exposed to UV for a prolonged period of time, sometimes it bleaches a bit and you see it kind of getting lighter. Apparently this helps avoid that sort of thing. So what this might be good for is some of the darker woods that you're trying to oil, for example, fretboards and stuff like that. Odie's oil seems like it would be a good option for that kind of thing, and you could use the dark to keep the dark wood dark, especially if you're in the sunlight with your guitar a lot for some reason. The Odie's butter, again, kind of looks very similar as well. This stuff you're supposed to leave a little bit longer. Like I said, I'm using the exact same application and removal, I guess, method, but you can use the rag to remove this as well. The oils are slightly faster than the butter, and the butters and the waxes get left on there a little bit longer before you buff them off. You can buff them off right away, frankly, but that's really not what you're supposed to do, or so they tell me. And doing this 45 minutes later left a pretty nice finish that I'm actually pretty happy with. So I'm going to have to try layering these up and stuff. I'm excited to kind of get into some of the more intricate tests. You guys know how I am with finishes. Well, we did the buff on, buff off, 2 coats with the oil, 2 coats with the dark oil, and then we did kind of the buff on, leave for a bit, buff off with the butter because it's more of a wax type item. Yeah, let's see what we ended up with here. So the oil, we got a little bit on the side there, just a second. This stuff is not only super easy to work with, but apparently you can just like touch it up whenever you want using essentially the same technique, which is pretty nice. So here's the kind of raw wood look. It's got a little bit of oil from underneath on it, but anyway, there's the raw wood look. Here's what we ended up with just the standard oil. I can't see what you can see right now, but there's a nice kind of satiny sheen to it, like you would expect from an oiled finish with a little bit of wax on it. Like nothing surprising there. It feels really nice. I think I will probably start using this for some guitar necks here and there. Well, and some guitars, but it's got that type of feel that I would like to have on my guitar necks. So that's an important thing for me because I'm always looking for a good finish for a neck. I'm very particular about how I do my necks, and I don't like them to have a gloss, and this is good. Next up, the Odie's Dark. Very similar look. Again, raw versus Odie's Dark. I don't have any UV light handy, but the idea is that this stuff will age in sunlight or UV. So maybe I'll toss that in front of a UV light at the shop one of these days and let you guys know how it turned out. But generally speaking, as it stands, it looks pretty much the same, just a hint, maybe a shade darker, but it's hard to tell because they're 2 different pieces with 2 different veneers on them. So even though they should be similar, I can't say for sure if this is actually darker upon initial application. Same kind of feel, nice and smooth. I really like that. And then finally, the butter. Again, we have wax. We'll try the wax as well, but the butter, very similar. Let's take a look here. The sheen is similar as well. If you feel this one, the butter, you can tell that it's sitting on the surface a little more than the oil. And it hasn't been on there long enough to dry fully. This is going to take a couple days to like fully harden up and whatnot. But yeah, you can feel the difference. I think that will probably persist, but it's got a slightly waxier feel to it. And I keep wanting to go back and like give it another buff up because it seems like every time I do, it gets just a touch shinier. I think you could probably polish this too, although I don't see why you would, because it kind of defeats the purpose. I mean, we're not going for a gloss here. This is exactly what we're looking for. So I'm going to wait probably a couple days and we'll come back. And like I said, we'll do some tests later in further videos with combinations of these. So I'll probably try putting the butter on top of the wax. Nope, that's backward. Probably try putting the butter on top of the oil, for example. And in another one, I'll try putting the wax on top of the oil. And then we'll do something with the super penetrating oil and some dyes, which I did a quick test, or not dyes, sorry, pigments. I did a very quick test with some blue got it into the grain on this guy. But yeah, we'll cover that in another video. So guys, that's the Odie's oil. That's just a couple of coats. Very easy, very straightforward to put on. Really nice stuff. I'm happy with it so far, and you can continue to build this stuff up kind of in perpetuity. So I think I may try a few extra coats on there, and I'll post on Instagram or something a picture of the what it looks like now and what it looks like with, you know, 3 more coats or something like that. And you guys can get a sense of whether this is something you might be interested in. If you are looking for any of these Odie's oil products, they're available through the Solo Music Gear link in the description. That's my affiliate link. It helps me out if you use it. So if you do, thank you. And all of the Odie's oil stuff it should be in there, but if not, Odie's oil has its own website. They also have their own Instagram that has a lot of good tutorials on how to use their stuff. So check that out for more information. And these white non-abrasive pads, I think they have those as well. But if not, I've got them in the Amazon link in the description. So feel free to check them out there. Again, affiliate link helps me out if you do that. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to give the video a thumbs up. That helps me out as well. And remember to subscribe so you can see what we end up doing with these and you can see the pigment tests. Thanks again. Have a good one, and I'll see you next time.